Hello everyone. Today we're beginning our first section of the first chapter. It's our introductory chapter. So I'm going to be introducing the concept here of cohort effects. As we go along, I'll be introducing some other basic concepts, many of which you should already know. I'll note some major controversies, and I'll be talking about several theorists as we move through this chapter. If I were actually in class, I would stop and play this video for you. You may want to check it out. It's a little song video. It indirectly deals with our first major concept. For those of you who took out a moment to watch the video, I will tell you that starting with Peter Pan and going forward in this song, I remember the items that are being noted. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. My baby pictures are in black and white. I remember when comic books were a dime. Gas and movies were maybe a quarter. Penicillin was a miracle drug. Our phone was on a party line. Now all the boys my age had a coonskin cap. We all had Zorro lunchboxes. It was a first major marketing tie-in success. Girls were not allowed to wear pants to school. I participated in atomic bomb drills. I remember watching Movietone newsreels in which Nikita Khrushchev took off his shoe to bang the table at the UN saying, "We will bury you." My husband actually played lawn darts. Now, if you don't remember these things, you definitely were born after 1960. At that time, growing up, if I wanted a cola to drink, I had my choice of Coke, Pepsi, and RC. The only diet drink was Tab. It was introduced in 1963. Now we have a bunch of other choices. A lot of choices. Some of these have come and gone. Now, in 1985, New Coke was introduced for a brief time. It was a major failure. Also, for a brief time, there was something called Crystal Pepsi. It went from 1992 to 1993. Pepsi Max, first diet drink marketed to men. When I was little, we had no TV until I was about 9 or 10. Then we had one. The Wizard of Oz was shown one time a year. We watched it in black and white. There was no remote. There were only 3 channels. There was no profanity on TV. TV signed off with the national anthem and signed on at 5 with the farm report. Recognize this. It's a transistor radio. We listened to John Glenn's heartbeat as he circumnavigated the world 3 times. We had 45s that we played on record players. You know what this is? Gen Xers recognize it. It's an 8-track. When I was growing up, movies were shown one to a theater. Or you could go to the drive-in. We'd go in our pajamas. Theaters had ushers. Movies were preceded by those Movietone newsreels, a cartoon, often a chapter of some serialized production like Batman and Mr. Freeze. There would be trailers for coming attractions. We did not have commercials. Now there would be intermissions in the really long movies like Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia, not so you could go to the bathroom, but so people could go out and smoke. Recognize this. It's a slide rule. We would have to take a class in using this before taking any really advanced math classes. Slide rules were eventually replaced by this. Notice there's just addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division functions. Early computers looked like this. Now my son, 1985, has always lived in a home with a color TV. In fact, there's several color TVs. There's always been a remote or 12. There used to be a VCR, so we have video of his first birthday. There's always been MTV. He has always lived in a home with a computer. It actually looked like this one. This is a TRS-80 Model 3. It had a tape measure and big 5-inch floppies. Recognize this. It's Pong. About 1975, Sears had a really big promotion one Christmas. Now this is one of the first 2-bit games by Atari. This one is Space Invaders. This was their best seller. It's called Defender. Now, in 1981, Coleco introduced a 4-bit game system. This is not Pac-Man. This is Venture. It's based on an arcade game called Berserk. You are the tiny purple dot at the bottom of the screen. And when he goes in one of the rooms, this is what you look like. You are now the little guy with the arrow. Atari wiped this company off the market. Now, another company had been making games for the Atari system. They approached Atari to see if they would take on marketing for their new 8-bit game system. Atari thought the game system was just too expensive. I mean, who would spend $100 on a video game system? They turned them down. The small company, struggling to keep afloat, opted to go it alone, and in 1985 introduced this character, Mario, of the Nintendo game system. The system was wildly popular, and the company soon introduced this enemy, the slime. The slime continues to appear as a minor henchman in many, many video games. Now this game is important. It introduced the first internal battery pack. You could save your game rather than having to play completely through. Now, games continued to improve with 16-bit systems, 32-bit systems, 64-bit systems, and so on. Okay, until we now are on online gaming where you actually play with other people who may live far, far away from you. When I was little, I had red measles. I had mumps. And during another pandemic, I had rubella. I have a smallpox vaccination. My son has had none of these diseases, but we have had to worry about adverse effects, reactions to immunization shots. My son did have chickenpox, but I suspect his children will not have this disease. He has always lived in a world with Legionnaire's disease, Lyme disease, hantavirus, Ebola virus, and AIDS. West Nile is new for him, as is SARS, MRSA, and of course COVID-19. When I was little and our family traveled, we went on 2-lane roads that went through every podunk town. There was no interstate system. My husband, who grew up in Greenville, remembers riding over on a Sunday afternoon to Spartanburg to look at Highway 29. It was a 4-lane divided highway. When you traveled, you looked for clean gas stations and restaurants with a lot of big trucks parked in front. Truckers knew where the good road food was. I remember car hops on roller skates who worked at family-owned restaurants. My husband remembers when the first McDonald's came to Greenville. It was takeout only. You got out of your car to go to the window to order your own food, and then you took it back and ate it in the car. I remember when a new restaurant came to Columbia. It had a novel feature we all had to go and try out. It was called a drive-through. When I grew up, there were no pizza places, no Chinese restaurants, no Mexican restaurants. My son was in the last group taught how to use a card catalog. He doesn't know how to fix popcorn except in a microwave. He has always lived in a world with central air conditioning, pocket calculators, paperback books, ATMs, and shopping malls, which you know are dying. They're being replaced by the open court model like Green Ridge. There has always been a Sesame Street, ice makers in the fridge, garbage disposals. He wore underoos. He has always lived in a world where 18-year-olds could vote. There has never been a draft. No one has ever walked on the moon during his lifetime. He does remember getting cell phones. Our first one looked like this. Now, my husband's parents remembered World War II. I had an uncle who was on the beach at Dunkirk and was taken off and was fortunately saved. My parents, my husband's parents, they remember the Great Depression, the Korean War, when houses did not have indoor plumbing and when babies were born at home. My grandmother, who was an official Edwardian, remembered when airplanes were a novelty. She remembered the sinking of the Titanic. And this is a recruiting poster that features a mother with a babe in arms being drowned. This is from the Lusitania. It was a civilian ship sank by a U-boat prior to Great Britain entering World War I. She remembered when women got the vote in England. British suffragettes were wild women. She remembered the first pandemic called the Spanish influenza. It was a type of H1N1 flu. It killed between 20 to 40 million people during its 1 year. And that's more than died in World War I. That's more than died from bubonic plague. Of course she remembered this. This is the Hindenburg explosion. Remarkable because it was a live broadcast, and you can listen to it here on this YouTube channel. Now, folks, what we're going to be focusing on this course is human development. That is the pattern of change that begins at conception and continues through the lifespan. Now,